Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is the fourth of our industry webinars that we're doing here at Olin Business School. We have talked already about finance, marketing, and accounting. And today we're actually going to be talking about how we can help you to be a top consultant. More details can be found on our website about our future sessions, which will be in supply chain management and entrepreneurship. And we can also provide you with some information at the end of this webinar if you have any additional queries. My name is Megan Waite. I'm an Associate Director of Admissions here with the Olin Business School. I've been here for about 5 years now with the institution. It's a great place to be. And in addition to that, I'm also a recent graduate from the professional MBA program. So happy to answer any questions you might have about the program at the end as well from that student perspective. But before we get started, let's make sure that we also cover some of the housekeeping rules that we have here. And so this is really just to make sure that everybody can have a really fun time while we chat about consulting, and make sure that everybody has their, or understands rather, that their microphones have been muted. And this is ultimately just to reduce the background noise that we have. But if anybody is having trouble hearing me, please feel free to use the raise your hand function to be able to get my attention. And if there's anything I can do to assist you there, I'll certainly do as best I can. This webinar will be recorded, so if you do need to leave early for any reason, please don't hesitate to do so, and we'll make sure that we get that information out to you as soon as possible. It's typically within a week of the webinar going live that we're able to get that recording up onto our YouTube channel for you. And if you have any questions, I will be taking those at the end of the webinar today, but at the same time, you can use at any time the Q&A box. It looks like Paul has already made the most of that opportunity in advance of the webinar today, so thank you, Paul, for your question. But we can certainly make sure that if your question is something applicable to the larger group, we will make sure that we cover that during the presentation as best we can. If for some reason we run out of time or it's something more specific to your situation, we will flag that and we will follow up with you after the webinar with a personal email. So just make sure that if that's the case, that you haven't clicked anonymous when posting your questions. All right, so let's get started now with the more interesting things. We'll talk about the agenda firstly, and then we can move into the actual programming. We'll start with the program offerings at the graduate level at Olin Business School that can be beneficial to you as a consultant. We'll look at what research centers we have here. That will be our main focus, although there is a lot of research that is done outside of those research centers as well. Experiential learning will be covered from the perspective of the student experience. We'll also provide some additional resources that might be of use to you going into a career in consulting. We'll look at what career opportunities our students are finding in the consulting space. We'll look at what student organizations might be of benefit to you if you're looking at going into a consulting career. And then finally, we'll also look at what opportunities exist here in St. Louis if you're wanting to stay grounded here rather than traveling elsewhere around the country or around the globe. Okay, so looking at the consulting programs that we have, the primary program where we see students being successful consultants coming out in their graduation is our Master of Business Administration, the MBA. And the main reason for this is that we typically find that the companies looking to put people into these careers or looking to hire students into consulting careers are actually doing so based on having some pre-existing work experience, and that tends to fit the profile of our MBA students more specifically. Our full-time MBA program actually has a formal consulting platform with the following concentrations: general management and internal consulting, business of healthcare, international management, strategy consulting, and also human capital consulting. While our PMBA program does not have a formal platform, you can concentrate in this subject by mapping out your coursework that you want to pursue. And it does cover a lot of general core coursework in negotiations, critical thinking, strategy, and organizational behavior. And those are all available to you, whether they're full-time program coursework or part-time program coursework. For the executive MBAs out there, as with the other formats, you do gain general skills that are valuable to you as you grow in your career. And so again, that critical thinking, management, organizational behavior, and strategy. At the same time, you're in more of a lockstep program. So that means that you don't have as many choices when it comes to the concentration course offerings. Prospective students who are earlier in their careers, so for example, those of you that are getting ready to graduate from your undergraduate institution at this time, you can also consider our specialized master's programs as a stepping stone toward a long-term career in consulting, but know that you may need to come back for an MBA at a future date to be able to make sure that you're well-rounded in the more critical thinking skills and not just on those technical skills. So we are a research institution here at Washington University, and so with that, it would be crazy for us not to talk about the research opportunities that exist within the Olin Business School. Rather than provide specific examples of research that we've done in our previous industry webinars, let's look specifically at the research centers. Because consulting can really cover a lot of different industry areas or a lot of different functional areas as well, rather. We are going to look at all 5 of our centers and what they offer, because I think that there is potential for it to benefit you. So we'll start with our Bauer Leadership Center. This is the George and Carol Bauer Leadership Center, and it seeks to impact every student and faculty member, as well as the broader community, by highlighting the importance of values-based leadership. And this is something that's growing in the corporate world when it comes to the kinds of people that they're looking to hire, this values-based leadership. Bauer Leadership Fellows Program is an example of how we're working with our practicum team leaders in partnership with the Center for Experiential Learning. There are some sponsored courses, for example, the Defining Moments Speaker Series. There is also the Women in Leadership course that you can take as a graduate student here. I took that during my PMBA program, and we had some excellent speakers coming in to talk about the challenges specifically that women face in the workplace. And there's also some research that's provided there as well from the faculty member about the challenges we face from a statistical or a research standpoint. We had Senator Claire McCaskill come and speak to our class. It's co-taught by Maxine Clark, who is the founder of Build-A-Bear, and a lot of other very, very strong women leaders that come through to be able to share their experiences with you. In addition to that, the Bauer Leadership Center also has the MS, or the Masters of Science in Leadership, which is in Washington, D.C., in partnership with the Brookings Institution, and that's designed for working professionals in the area. So that may also be something that you're interested in, depending on your location and your interest at this point in time. Okay, moving on to our Center for Research in Economics and Strategy. This is an opportunity for you to get really connected with that consulting space. There is a seminar series in which both internal and external research is presented. We do have short-term visitor programs in which researchers from other domestic or international institutions can spend short times here at Olin engaging in economics and strategy. There are conferences that are held on campus. There's also some assistance for the MBA and the undergraduate students, naming top performing students as fellows within the center, and supporting and assisting in a variety of ways to help them with that faculty engagement and support the faculty with their research projects. Okay, the third one that we have is the Center for Customer Analytics and Big Data. And the goal here is to really make sure that we drive industry adoption of analytics-driven strategic decision-making. So I know that's a lot to handle, but that's certainly something that's becoming very popular, to be able to make evidence-based decisions in the marketplace, to be able to be more effective. The Center for Customer Analytics and Big Data does hold workshops. They provide experiential learning opportunities. There is applied faculty research that's done there, and then there's also a research roundtable for faculty to come together with other faculty from across the globe to really have deep discussions about how to best practice within this industry. The fourth center that we'll talk about today is the Boeing Center for Supply Chain Innovation. This mission is to create and disseminate knowledge on world-class supply chain management and operational excellence practices. The center research addresses timely operational excellence and supply chain strategy, execution and risk management issues, and is frequently quoted in the international press, so there's definitely some credibility that's attached to that. The annual industry conference is one example of how you can get engaged there and network with some top leaders in that space. There is a Project of the Year symposium, an annual research conference for faculty, and also operational excellence seminars that are held frequently throughout the year. In addition to that, specifically with our supply chain management students with that master's degree, there are sponsored practicum projects that have been done by our students in the past. Some examples of companies I've worked with have been AB InBev, Belden, Boeing, Edward Jones, Caleres, and also Monsanto. And the last but not least certainly is the Wells Fargo Advisors Center for Finance and Accounting Research. Established in 2007, the center is the catalyst and focal point and coordinating body for research in finance and accounting at Washington University. They have examples of seminars that they hold with industry and academic experts. They also have a mentor program for select graduate programs, matching them to management level alumni or champions of the Olin Business School here in the St. Louis community. So a really great way to get connections there in spaces that you wouldn't necessarily have access to. Moving on now to the fun part for all of you out there that are looking at coming to Olin Business School, we're going to talk a little bit about experiential learning at this university. We'll start specifically with the Center for Experiential Learning, which focuses more primarily within the Olin Business School, and we'll have a few other options that you might have in the interdisciplinary space a little bit later on in additional resources. So the Center for Experiential Learning has a variety of different offerings to you. They have practicum projects available with for-profit companies, non-profit companies, family businesses, and startups as well. And so you need to apply for these programs, but you do get credit for the work that you do, and you also get the real-world experience to add to your resume, which is really nice. We also have a couple of other options through there. The Graduate Management Studies program is something that is held in the spring. It's completely driven by student interest, and they travel to a certain country or region in the world to really get to know more about how that specific industry that they're targeting works, or also to learn a little bit more about the culture of that area and how business is conducted. And finally, I'll also mention, since it's more tailored toward the consulting side of things, the United Way Board Fellows Program. It's not available to all graduate students, unfortunately, just based on the time commitment required for this course. It does go for an entire year, so you typically only see our professional MBA, full-time MBA, or executive MBA students playing a role in this program. But it's a way for you to sit for 1 year as an active board member with a United Way agency within the St. Louis region. Now, in addition to that, you would also work with a faculty mentor and a board mentor to work on a consulting project directly for that nonprofit organization. And this is where you can really make a difference within the community. There's oftentimes a limited number of resources with these nonprofit organizations. So being a part of that and being a part of the change they're trying to make with the expertise that you can bring is a really great way to be able to make a difference and add that values-based leadership culture into your life. So I've got 3 examples here of experiential learning practicum projects that have been done. These are team-based projects. The first one is going to be a nonprofit that was done through our Taylor Community Consulting Program. It was done with Ride on St. Louis. So I'll give you a little bit of an overview about that organization. They were founded in 1998. And they're a comprehensive therapy, conditioning, and learning nonprofit organization. They use what's called hippotherapy, which is a therapy with the aid of a horse, to achieve emotional, mental, and physical benefits for the developmentally and physically disabled, as well as the disadvantaged youth of the community. So Ride on St. Louis provides 5 individualized quality supports. They have therapy, which is physical or occupational, adaptive riding, sports riding, and their sensational summer camp and a Wounded Warrior program designed to facilitate support for the country's veterans. So the project that the students worked on here with Ride on St. Louis was to develop a strategic plan that is consistent, inclusive, and supportive of their core values and mission, to develop a clear and comprehensive grasp of external opportunities and challenges that they face, to map out the transition of Ride on St. Louis from their current St. Louis location to a new location, and service level to the next level. They also had to strengthen and unite the board of directors, staff, riders, donors, and community by defining clear priorities and an implementation plan, provide the foundation necessary to attract a talented and devoted executive director, and reduce waste volume by serving more in need while maintaining the quality for programming, safety, training, and effectiveness. This to me is one of the record longest projects or longest project overviews that I've seen in any of these courses. These students accomplished this as a team within an 8-week program with the Taylor Community Consulting Program. And I know the client personally, and I know that they had a really positive experience and got a lot of value out of this. I have no idea how many people hours were put into this, but it was certainly something that was beneficial to this nonprofit. And for that, they're certainly grateful to have the support. Now, the second one is an interesting one and actually ties into the photograph you can see on the slide here as well. It's called the Women's Bakery, and it was founded by Olin MBA 2017 graduate Marky Culver. And it's a bakery that offers women in rural Africa access to business education, life skills, and applied baking and nutritional skills. There are training courses to empower women to create and manage sustainable bakeries so that they can become economically self-sufficient. And we've had several groups go over on a variety of different projects to work with supporting Marky's cause and her organization over in Rwanda. One project here in particular I'm going to make a mention of is to analyze and reduce the Women's Bakery's financial overhead costs while maintaining the organization's social mission. And so they were really wanting to make an analysis here on what they're spending, how they can perhaps minimize that from a training perspective, and then also from the perspective of the individual bakeries that are already in existence. So the students traveled to Rwanda, they visited the bakeries, they met with trainers, and they also analyzed the local grocery stores to evaluate their competition before making recommendations to Marky and her team on how to best help and support this organization. It is still going very well, and we still continue to stay engaged there. I know in the classroom, for example, I took a digital marketing class, and I did see that there were students presenting and doing work based on the Women's Bakery. So it's really nice to see that other students are supporting their classmates with their endeavors, especially in that social entrepreneurship space and startup space, and to be able to make sure that they can get the most out of their program here at Olin. The third project that I have for you today is with the Yield Lab, which is an accelerator for agricultural technology startups. The companies in its portfolio receive seed funding and business mentoring in the hopes of harvesting innovations that seek to either increase agricultural yields for farmers or bringing efficient solutions into the field. At the time the project was done, which was this past spring, they were cultivating about 15 startups, but they recently expanded their operations overseas to Galway in Ireland in February of 2017 and admitted 3 new startup companies into the accelerator program. So there is a lot of growth happening there at this point in time. The project that was tasked with these students in the Select Practicum project, which is with the startup scene, it was to identify meaningful ways of collecting and reporting environmental, social, and economic impact metrics to investors. So how do they really sell what the Yield Lab is doing, how they're benefiting the greater community, and hopefully getting some capital to be able to continue to grow their organization. So looking at some of the additional resources that you might have, we have talked a little bit about guest speakers through our research centers, but we also have guest speakers that come through the university and through Olin Business School that may be of interest to you that aren't necessarily connected with those research centers. So I would encourage you as a student here to definitely keep an eye out on that and look at what's going on. Make sure you have a pulse on any opportunities to connect and learn and network with people, not just from the St. Louis community, but also from our national community and our global community as well. In addition to that, we have industry advisors. And now this is something that not all schools have, but we're proud to say that we do. Rather than having our advisors in our Career Center having just a specific academic background, they also have to have that industry expertise coming from anywhere from 5, 10, 20 to 30 years of experience in a variety of different areas. And we have some great folks coming from large consulting firms that work as industry advisors, whether it be on our full-time staff, which is 10 individual advisors, to our adjunct staff, I will call them, or some of our advisors that come through on a temporary basis who are still working out there in the industry. In addition to that, we do have academic directors connected to each of our platforms, one of those being consulting. So you have the ability to connect with that academic director. That's Dan Elfenbein, and he is one of the contributors to the Brookings Institution in Washington, D.C. as well. So he is a very, very smart man who you will see very early on if you're an MBA student as you're a strategic management professor. In addition to that, we also have his lovely wife here who is a nice powerhouse as well for the institution in the Women in Leadership program. In addition to that, we also have the Scandalaris Center for Interdisciplinary Innovation and Entrepreneurship. It is a really cool space for you to be able to go down and use as a little bit of an incubator, but it's also a way for you to get involved in competitions if you have your own idea, look for funding or seek funding for your ideas in your startup, and also to get that strategic support that you might need to be able to get your business up and running. And you can use that up until you're about 5 years out as an alum as well. So don't think that just because you graduate from here that those resources aren't available to you. And certainly the networks that are there are huge too. So if you're looking at helping with strategy for somebody else, perhaps that has a startup, that might be a nice way to get some consulting experience. And then finally, the other resource that I've listed here are case competitions. So oftentimes these are about making recommendations on a particular problem, just as you would in consulting, and presenting those ideas to a panel. And so we do have the Monsanto case competition each February, which is a sustainability-focused case competition that happens here at Olin Business School. And I will say as well that we get a lot of students traveling nationally and internationally for case competitions, whether it be by teams or whether it be as individuals joining other teams. An example of that would be one of our first-year MBAs who was a member of the winning team. I'm going to point that out because we're really impressed, in the PepsiCo MBA Invitational Business Case Competition, which was held last month at Texas Christian University. So Oni, shout out to you. You're amazing. We're very, very proud of you, and I expect that you'll continue to make us proud as well. Okay, so moving along, we're taking a look here now at the employment statistics for our graduating MBA class of 2017. It's only showing those that have the job function or area of consulting that they have an interest in. So there's management consulting, there's strategic planning and internal consulting. So you can see that breakdown there. The average, median, and high-low salaries are there as well to give you an indicator. And then there's some examples of some of those companies that have hired our students into consulting roles, whether that be public or private or internal consulting as well. I'll leave that up just for a moment so that you can take a look, but this is certainly not a complete list of companies that we have connections to. A lot of our students will also be finding opportunities in areas such as Chicago, New York City, and San Francisco. Accenture is a large one in particular for healthcare for our students. So I think last year we had about 8 students within that group get either internships or full-time job offers in that area. So it was a good number of students from a small class or small cohort that were successful with that particular company. Looking at student organizations, so we do have the Olin Strategy and Consulting Association, which is fondly known as OSCA. While this is the primary consulting organization for you, you think about the different kinds of areas that you could focus in with your consulting, and that means that a lot of our other clubs can be incredibly relevant for you as well. So I've put some examples of some of those up here for you. We have healthcare, marketing, energy, supply chain and operations, sports, media and entertainment, technology, real estate, athletics. There's one here in economics as well. So there are some great ways that you can really use some of the existing organizations to network and still be in that consulting space. I did fail to mention, and I apologize for that, Olin Women in Business is up there as well. They get some great guest speakers in to join their efforts to be able to network within the St. Louis community as well. Okay, now speaking of St. Louis, which I've done plenty of today, we are known, for those that don't know us so well, for our barbecue, for our beer, for our Cardinals baseball, and for our Blues, which is the St. Louis professional hockey team that we have here. And so while this isn't everything that defines us, we certainly have some great places to be involved in, looking at microbreweries if that's something you have an interest in. You'll see the first or in the middle, the 3 microbreweries are examples there that we have. We have several more. The one down the bottom, I would say Budweiser is not a microbrewery. It's a little bit bigger than that, especially since it's been bought out by AB InBev, but we are the hometown to Anheuser-Busch, and so we do have a great connection there to the Busch family as well. Obviously, everybody loves baseball, everybody loves hockey, so there are great ways to get engaged in those professional sports as well. And oftentimes there are social events that surround those once you're here on campus. Well, this isn't the only reason you stay in St. Louis. You're obviously looking as well at what opportunities you have to network. So we'll talk a little bit about the professional side for you today. St. Louis is home to 9 Fortune 500 companies and also 18 Fortune 1000 companies. So there's a lot of opportunity out there to get connected. We were recently also ranked one of the top 5 fastest growing cities in the United States for startups. So if anybody is interested in this area, a lot of this is to do with the incubators, the cost of living being spectacular here as well for them to be able to actually afford to get themselves up and running, and a lot of the capital investment that you have access to. And obviously, this is also a consulting webinar, so I want to make sure I point out that we do have a lot of consulting companies based here, even if we do see a lot of our students going elsewhere with opportunities in consulting. Accenture, Slalom, Deloitte, KPMG, PricewaterhouseCoopers or PwC, and then also Aon Consulting, Booz Allen Hamilton. There are several others in the area too, and then some small boutique consulting firms. So don't feel like if you're coming back to St. Louis and wanting to plant your roots here, that that's not a possibility. Okay, so that brings us to our very last slide, which is about what you can do next to continue to stay engaged with Olin Business School. So we do have a Women's Weekend coming up on November 10th through 12th. It's primarily focused on the full-time MBA program as far as that programming, so I'll just let you know that. And the same goes with our Diversity Weekend, which is December 1 through 3. You can find out more information on olin.boostal.edu, which is the website at the bottom left of the page. In addition to that, you can reach out to us by email, which is also listed on the page, or the screen rather, to be able to ask any questions you have, get connected with a recruiter, and learn a little bit more about some of the campus visit days that we have coming up. The other thing that you could do is you could start your application. So you can get in there at any point in time, review the information that is available to you, start now, still apply and submit by round 4, and know that you have plenty of time to prepare for that as well. So make sure that you take a look at that and see in advance what you can do to be as prepared as possible. And then I mentioned earlier at the beginning that we have 2 more of our industry webinars left, the supply chain at Olin and the entrepreneurship at Olin, coming up on November 8th and November 15th, respectively. And then we also have some webinars on how to finance your graduate education. So definitely take a look at those as well. There's one specific to international students, in addition to one for US citizens and permanent residents, so that you know what options are available for you there. Now, it looks like we have somebody who's interested in recruiting, or companies that recruit specifically for marketing consulting, that's wanting to combine marketing and consulting post-MBA, and looking at what options they might have there. So it does look like, Madhuri, that might be a little bit more specific to your circumstance. We do have students that have a marketing background that do go into consulting post-graduation, so that option is available to you. Really what that would look like would be specific to your circumstances, specific to your background, and we can certainly go through that together. So I'll make a note of your question, and if you don't mind, we'll follow up with you directly and we can have a conversation about that. And at this point, we do have the open field for any questions that might be out there that you have that you're just pining to get a response for. Anything that I can help with that might be beneficial to the larger group, I'd be happy to answer questions. Okay, it seems like we may not have any other questions beyond Madhuri right now, who I will reach out to separately, so thank you so much for that. If there is anything else that you would like to follow up on, again, that Olin Grad Admissions at woostal.edu email is available to you. Because you have been here with us today, we will also make sure that we send you a recording of this, so if there's anything that you want to have more detailed information about, something that you missed, if you arrived a little bit late, not a problem, we'll make sure we get that to you and chat with you about that a little bit later. It looks like we also have some one question here about the events that are happening for Women's Weekend. Absolutely, that agenda should be up on our website as well. So please email Olin Grad Admissions at woostal.edu, or Diane, I can follow up with you on that agenda as well if need be, and certainly make sure that we cover that. But we do have a guest speaker coming in from one of the startups here in St. Louis who will be fantastic. We have Stella stellar alumni panel group that are coming in from a variety of different places. We have somebody coming in from IBM, somebody coming in from Accenture. So I really hope that you can make it and join us for the day. Any questions we have here specifically about personal application test scores and things like that, again, we'll follow up with you after the session when we're sending out the recording to make sure you have those details as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. We look forward to having the opportunity to speak with you a little bit more in the future. And actually, I apologize. It looks like we do have a couple of other questions here as well that I have missed. So I'll make sure I can cover any that are relevant to the larger group. There was a question about the Global Master of Finance program, including experiential learning projects. It is a little bit more difficult to do those here on campus in the United States. So that would be something that, unfortunately, for the global program would not be available to you, but we can certainly have discussions about what opportunities might exist elsewhere in the partner school that you're with as well. So we do have opportunities for on-campus jobs that exist. It's a little less related to consulting, but just to let you know, those do exist. They're on an hourly basis. We don't have study programs or anything like that that you might find at state schools. So it is a little bit constrained. If you're an international student, unfortunately, you can only work for about 20 hours maximum based on your visa. So that's something to be aware of as well. We also have a question here about, do students have any consulting internship chance during the program? Regarding the MBA, absolutely. So it is a 2-year program currently, and as a result of that, you do have that summer between your first and your second year to be able to get an internship, and we certainly see students doing so. As soon as you arrive on campus, we'll actually start preparing you for opportunities to be able to get connected with companies through our Meet the Firms events. Be prepared for that. You will be front-loaded with your core classes, so you have more examples to talk about with those prospective employers when they come to campus. And I certainly know of students that are doing internships and have offers already at this point for the next summer. So our first year MBA students that are looking at interning this following summer of 2018. Regarding the detailed offerings through the Leadership Center, it is basically what I had shared before about the fellowship for the MBA program that ties into the Center for Experiential Learning, those practicum projects, and then the speaker series and conference that happens there. I'd be happy to share some information with you offline if you would like as well, Jody, just in regards to perhaps some of the examples of speakers that we've had come through and some of the symposium information as well. Test scores, anything like that, I'll respond to you directly by email there. When it comes to the percentage of international students normally hired by consulting companies, it really depends year by year. I would recommend looking at the entire employment report, and what I can do is break that down a little bit and provide some information as best I can for you once I send out the recording to you as well, to make sure that we can answer that question for you a little bit more of a detailed way. Generally, the report doesn't break down international versus domestic and how they're placed, but we'll certainly look at that for you and see if there's any additional information that can be provided. For international students or domestic students, you can submit a GRE instead of a GMAT score, so that's not a problem there at all. And certainly with the business analytics program helping in a consulting career path, what that will be giving you is that analytical skill set to really be able to have a technical ability to take a deep dive into that area and understand whichever track you decide to take, understand that industry and how to apply the knowledge that you have from the program. That being said, if you're coming in and you don't have any work experience in advance, you'll find that this would be a stepping stone, as I mentioned before, as part of the specialized master's programs that would allow you to be able to grow your skill set and then at a future date look at consulting as an opportunity more than likely, or you would be working potentially in a consulting team as an analyst. So there are a couple of paths that you could take there that can certainly help you to reach that. We can certainly share some information about the accounting graduate program. I would recommend that these kinds of questions definitely come through to our Olin Grad Admissions at worcester.edu email site. We'll be able to make sure that you have information on that. And I can also email you the link to last week's accounting webinar that we did as well to give you an overview there. Again, anything that's specific to percentages here, I don't unfortunately have the breakdown of what percentage of students went specific places, so I'll make sure I get that to you in a follow-up email. And I think that covers most of the questions that we have here as well that aren't specific to the larger group. So again, I thank you so much for your time today. If any other questions come up that I can help you with, please reach out directly. I'd be happy to assist you. Otherwise, I'll make sure that I follow up with some of your more specific personal questions in the near future. Thank you so much for your time today. We wish you all the best, and we look forward to seeing you on campus very soon. Thank you and have a great day.